Today's video I'll be taking a look at this vintage Pentium IV computer. This thing right here. Oh, let me move this. Pretty heavy. Data connection personal computer right here. There's a lot of markings on here and everything. This computer, actually one of my mom's friends gave me this computer. It's a Pentium IV 2.4 gigahertz North Bridge. Back in 2001 I had a Pentium IV 1.8 gigahertz. I think it was called Willamite or something. That was 423 pins. This one is, I think, 478 pins. This computer right here. I'll be opening it up actually. Showing you the inside. This computer works remarkably. For such an old machine, it still works. The way you take this out is by kind of an oddball configuration. So you pull it out a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to take it out. Let me see. So you move it out a little bit, and in the front there's some kind of a tab that holds it into place, like this. So you get it out. Show you the little tab or hole. See that hole? There's a hole in. There's a thing that catches it basically, and that's how you open it up. Pretty old computer. You could take the front panel out like that. Front panel should just come right out. Pull that out. Pull the other bottom part out. It's a pretty oddball design. Don't really like it. Came out just like that. That's the front plate. Strange design. You pull it out like you push the pins in and then you pull it out to get the drive bay out. You do the same for the 3.5 inch as well. The 3.5 inch floppy disk drive. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get it down like that. Show you what's inside of it. It's quite heavy. It's made out of steel basically. It's a 350 Watt ATX power supply. I think that's a 80 millimeter fan or something. No, it's bigger than 80 millimeter, maybe 120 or something, or 90. Not really sure. It has a 56K modem. I guess this was made around 2002 or something. And there's a AGP. I think that's a Geforce 2 MX 400 or 200 32 gigabyte graphics card. The RAM is RD 800 or something. So let me get the RAM out and show you. Here's the RAM. It's RD800, Kingston 2.5 volt. It's not DDR1, it's RDRAM. These type of RAM modules were pretty expensive. When I got my, I think it was Pentium IV, 1.8 gigahertz. I had 2 sticks of 256, a total of 512 megabytes. And this is 256. The other one is also 256. So let me get the graphics card out and show you. Geforce GTX, not a GTX, I'm sorry, it's an MX. So for these old computers, you just screw it out like that, the brackets. Just don't like this case design. It's so hard to get out. So on there you see a little thing. I think you push it that way, and you pull this out like that, like so, to get the graphics card out. It's like stuck. Let me get it back in, get it back out again. This time get it out like that, see. This is Geforce. It says 2MX32. I don't know if it's an MX200 or a 400. They came in 2 models, I remember. In my computer, I had a the 1.8 gigahertz Pentium IV. I had a I think it was a 3DFX Voodoo 4 4500 video card or something. Not sure how much RAM was in it. Maybe 128 megabytes or something like that. CPU is here. It has that big old heatsink. I don't want to get it out. Just gonna leave it in there. On the back of the case, it shows you what kind of computer is it. It says 2.4 Pentium IV. Right there. That's how I know it's a Pentium IV 2.4. Those are the I/O slots. You don't have to get a network card for it. So this is pretty modern. It has a parallel port for the printer. The builder labeled everything. USB, LAN, parallel heatsink, printer, keyboard and mouse. There. I think those are serial ports under the parallel port. I think those are USB 2 ports. You have the modem right there, the 56K baud modem, fax modem. It's also a sound card as well. See 2 stereo jacks. But the computer itself, the motherboard itself, has a built-in sound card, which was very common back in 2002. And it has a fan that intakes the air. Very simple. I think it's an 80mm fan or something. And you have another fan that exhausts the air from the back. Very, very basic, simple design. Reminiscent of a 2000 to, I guess, 2005 PC, basically. Put the RAM back in, this RAM. RDRAM. RDRAMs were quite expensive back then. It appears like they have something in here, but it's not RAM. I think it's just something to just keep it in place or something. No idea. Put it back. Definitely not RAM. I don't know what this is. Maybe it's... Do you want to keep the slots filled with something? Put it back inside. Okay. Let me see what kind of modem this is. From the PCI slot. Let me see what this is actually. And today they have toolless cases now. Back then, cases weren't toolless like that. Let me get that out. Get a better view. Got the wrong one. That's why it doesn't come out. I don't want to force it out. I don't want to break it. Alright, just like that. It says Intel or something. It's definitely a 56K baud modem. Nobody uses this now, but I guess back in 2002 some people were still using dial-up modem. I wasn't back in 2002. I was using I think I was using Time Warner cable modem back then. Put this back in. So this computer, I'm not really using it. I'm just using it as a, I guess kind of like a platform to put paper on top of it, something like that. It's not being used as a computer, but I did test it, and it does work. Put this AGP card in. As you can see, for the AGP card, there's this thing here. That's what keeps it in place. I don't know if you can see that. This thing, that's what keeps it in place. I'm going to put the card back in. The card just has VGA. I don't think DVI was invented back then. They may have had, not DVI, but HDMI wasn't. They might have had, no, I don't think they had DVI either. Not in 2002. Maybe in 2004 they might have had DVI video cards. I'm not sure. But when I got my Pentium computer back then, I had, I still had a Pentium III. I think it was 850 megahertz Pentium III. I had that as a secondary computer. That had a Geforce 2 GTS graphics card on it. An NVIDIA one. Got this back in. And the cables here are EIDE cables. EIDE. And you have two of them. And each cable has two, you could connect two devices to it. there's no SATA ports because SATA did not exist back then. There's an NEC chipset or something right there. That's NEC, I think. Right there, an NEC. I don't think NEC makes chips anymore. I think the company became Renesas or something. They make automotive chips or something like that now. They sold it to a company called Renesas. NEC no longer makes any chips. They did make a lot of chips back in the 1980s and 1990s. They even had their own computer brand. To get this out, you just push in like that, both, and slide it out like that. I've never seen this type of design. Quite unique. So I'm going to get the cables out of the back so I can pull the drive out all the way. There it is. This is a HP or Hewlett Packard. It's not a DVD, it's a CD-ROM. Okay. CD drive, that's pretty ancient for. It says made in May 2004. That's ancient. Because I was using DVD-ROM drives as early as 1999. I was watching DVD movies on my computer. I would rent them from the public library and watch them, or I would rent them from Blockbuster as well. Okay, CD-ROM. There's some kind of brackets here that hold it in place, so it goes into the rail, so it does come out. I think it's the one on the top. They just go in. There's a little thing here. You just connect it in. Goes in like that. Let me get the hard drive. I'll see what kind of hard drive this is. Get the back out. Get the brackets out. It says it's a Seagate 160 gigabyte. It's a EIDE drive, as you can see, with a Molex power connector. And these old drive settings is master, slave, or single. I think this is set at master or something. It's right here in the middle. This hard drive is quite old. It's even rusted. There's some pitting on here. It's rust, corrosion or something. Get this thing back in. Back in the rail. Get the ribbon in from the back. Show you the EIDE cable. Right. Here, that's the EIDE cable. That's for both optical drive and hard drives. They didn't have SATA back then, so we had these long, thick, ugly cables, which people said restricted airflow in the case. Probably did in a way. Let me get that CD-ROM back in. I think this rail system is pretty retarded. I don't know why they did that. In my opinion, it's retarded. But I guess these people just wanted to make their computers look unique so they could sell them. But the parts in this thing are not very premium or anything like that. Just some small company built it. And that was very common back in the late 1980s and 1990s and up to the 2000s. You had a lot of small companies that built computers, basically. Most cases came in this beige color. That's how it was back then. Try to get this thing back in. I certainly don't want to break it. Maybe I have to remove this thing so I can get it in more easily. Okay, good. That much is in. Okay, good. That's it. Snapped right in place. Now to get this in. Okay, that's in. I think this computer has Windows XP on it. Thing in. Let me see there's something on the bottom. Some kind of diagram. Let's see what that is right there. What the heck is that? I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see that. Sorry, the room's a little bit dark. Oh, that's a diagram for the motherboard. It says it's an Intel D850EM V2. So that's the motherboard. Let me repeat that again. An Intel D850E MV2 motherboard. So it's an Intel motherboard. It's not an Asus or 8-bit. The motherboard that I used was an 8-bit motherboard. 8-bit was a very popular company back in the day for overclock. People who wanted to mess around with their computers and overclocking and stuff like that, which I was into back in the 1990s and early 2000s. Let me get this out a little bit so I can get the case back in. Okay, it goes in like that. As you can see right here, a little space. I gotta get this thing back in. Now it's in. Just like that. So this is a vintage computer. We could say it's vintage, right? Even though it was built in 2002 or something like that. I guess people were still using dial-up modems and stuff like that. I stopped using dial-up in I think 2000. I first got something called a free DSL. That was utter crap. The company went out of business free DSL company went out of business in less than a year. They made us buy these expensive DSL modems for about, I think, $150 or $200, and then the company went under after like I think 8 months or something. And I said I had enough of it. I'll just get cable modem, and that's how it went. So, anyways, I will turn this computer on and show you this as well late on the next part. Okay, now I'm in my actually turned on my Pentium IV 2.4 gigahertz computer, and I'm in the BIOS. So to get into this BIOS, or the BIOS of Intel motherboards, you just keep pressing F2 when you get in there, just like that. The time is current. Boot sector. I could change the boot sector like that. Usually back in the day it was CD-ROM or optical disk, then it was hard drives. I only have one hard drive installed in there. That's what it shows. That's the optical drive. You could set a password for the BIOS if you want. If you don't want anybody to go into your BIOS and mess around with it. This shows what's connected onto my IDE cables. And like I said, back in the day, you had to set to jumper setting for your hard drive. You could set it to master or slave or independent. That would also be master. Same for the optical drive. You have to set the jumper settings for it. This is how much RAM is installed in this computer, 512 megabytes. Like I showed you earlier, it was RDRAM, 800 megahertz. So two slots are populated. It's PC 800. This is a Pentium IV, 2.4 gigahertz, running on a 533 megahertz bus. I'm going to exit, disregard savings because I don't have to. Now it's booting into Windows XP. See what kind of system this is. Okay, I got 512 megabytes. This is 2.4 gigahertz Pentium 4. Check out Device Manager. This is a Geforce 2MX 200, not a 400. 400 is better. This is the cheapest version. There's no hybrid threading in the CPU. The later Pentium 4s did have hyper-threading, so you would see 2 cores, one regular core and one virtual core. Network, I do have a network card in here. Can I connect to this on a network? Since it is connected to a network, so I'm going to see if I can connect to it. See what the IP address is. It's 192.168.1.1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set an IP address. Subnet mask. DNS 8. I don't need a DNS. What I want to see is if I can connect to this with remote desktop access. Okay, so I want to see if I can connect to this with remote desktop access. The first thing you have to do is you need to go to user accounts and make a password for it. I'm going to select this. Guess I'll change the picture as well. This has always been my iconic picture, or this, when I had Windows XP. And you could change the password here, and I did do that. And the next thing you could do is you could go to Systems. This is Windows XP Professional, so I should be able to use Windows Remote Desktop Access, and I should be able to hook up to this even with a modern computer, with a computer that has Windows 11 on it, which I am using right now on this computer, the recording computer. So you go to Remote, and then you allow users to connect to this computer remotely, like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to restart this, and I should be able to access the computer remotely. Okay, now I'm back on my desktop computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get in. This is the IP address. Yeah, I could get into this with modern hardware, which is amazing. Make a folder. Okay, share that folder. Another thing I want to do is I want to go to network and change some stuff. Properties. What I want to do here is I want to set an IP address, but I don't want it to connect to the internet. So, okay. See if I can connect. Good. I'm able to see everything on my network. But the only thing is, I can't go to the internet. And I should not be able to go to the internet with that, because that's an outdated operating system. And I'm also able to share files, which is amazing. I'm gonna say hello there. Hello there. How are you doing? How are you doing? Copy this link. Save there. I should be able to see it on the other computer. In that save folder. Hello there, how are you doing? I'm doing fine, thanks. Let's save this. Whoops, nope. Save it like so. Go back. I'm able to see it on this end as well. This computer may not be usable on the internet. Nevertheless, you could still turn it into a server, which I just did. I could connect to it via network. Let's try to go to the internet and see if that works. It doesn't work because there's no default gateway. It doesn't connect to the internet. But I could see everything in my network, which it should be able to do. So the network The RG45 cable is connected, and I'm able to use this, which is pretty good.